All right, welcome to the KYCA-PM show. It's time for the Mulligan Group here on the News 1490. So, folks, as we've always said before, gather the kids, the dog, grandma, lock them in another room, and be prepared for all manner of weirdness. Folks, it is a special edition today. I was going to rename the panel of all knowledge into the new really cool sounding name of our band, the Naysayers. But instead we have a special edition today because as we go around the table, you're going to understand why, folks. So 928-541-1016, but we're not taking calls right now. Now I need to get the Facebook ad going and so that other people can listen and watch. And isn't it just amazing how technology works? Okay. Thank you for joining in. Yes, we will have live video on our website, kyca.info, as well as on our Facebook page. You're going to want to watch today, folks, because we've got special guests in the house. To my left, very quickly, Bob Roecker from former Prescott City Councilman and lead guitarist of the Naysayers.
That's right.
Bob Roecker. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Who's up next week, real quick?
I've got Jim Thomas, CEO and founder of Aspire Sports, coming in on the Bob Show.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Oh, that's the old Sears, right?
That's the old Sears.
Can I still get a refrigerator up there?
No.
No, darn it.
That was Mary Ann.
That was Mary Ann.
Yeah.
I did get some appliances from Sears.
I did
just
too.
before they
I
closed.
did too. Who didn't?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And now coming up next, you know what? There's always a party wrecker. Come in,
there
come
he
sit
is.
down. We haven't even gotten around to you yet. Okay,
So, matter of fact, it's perfect timing. It's your turn to be introduced.
Okay, next up, just getting in late as usual, no, I'm kidding, is former Prescott City Councilman and bass guitarist of the Naysayers, Tom Reilly. Tom,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for coming in because we have a special guest here.
Who?
You're going to find out in a minute.
Here we go.
All right. Next up over here
He's on first.
Next over here, let's skip over to the other side. On drums is of the Naysayers is Malcolm Barrett Jr., former Prescott City Councilman. Sir.
Yes, and I do have a guest
Okay.
this Thursday. You missed Phil.
We
Yeah,
got to get
Phil.
you. We got to get you on a microphone here. Bring
right.
the mic around.
All right, bring the mic
Somebody
around.
get a mic. Okay.
Got a very special guest Thursday. It's our second installment of the third rail. Will Social Security go off the tracks in 2032?
And we're
With
talking.
Ray Sigafus.
And he talked about the debt before, correct?
Yes, and he'll concentrate on that. And then the next show next month will be on Medicare.
Okay. Very important stuff. So thank you for bringing in Ray. He was great. Finally, our backup vocalist and
No wonder we haven't sold any.
and the dean of the band, that would be Phil King. Phil, thank you for joining us today.
As always, glad to be here.
And
Angus Young.
and our special guest and band promoter, soon to be a member of the Mulligan Group as soon as he gets his butt voted off of council, and that would be current Prescott City Councilman Ted Gambogi. Ted, thank you for coming in today.
Hi, everybody.
Bring your mic in a little bit closer.
Hello, everybody.
Fantastic. How's
And
that?
in honor of our special guest, we're renaming this edition to the Curmudgeons.
There we go. All right. The reason that I asked Ted in at the last minute is because of the Prescott City Council study session that took place earlier today. This was to determine the ballot language that was going to be proposed for the May 14th voting meeting, and this proposition will be voted on by council May 14th. That's the expectation, correct, Ted?
Correct.
And so after reviewing everything, we had projections, we had both of the chiefs in. This was nearly a 2-hour meeting, by the way, guys.
You might want to mention to the listeners what we're talking about.
This is the proposal that will be on the November ballot for a capital gains tax, sales tax, that's going to appear on the November ballot, and this would pay for improvements and capital and operational needs for fire and police,
Public safety.
for the city of Prescott. There were 3 proposals on the table: an increase of 0.75%, an increase of 0.8%, and an increase of 0.95%, with a sunset down to 0.75% a few years down the road. So what's the final verdict? What's going to be talked about May 14th? Ted?
Quick question before we start.
Go ahead.
Is it a foregone conclusion that it is going to be put on the ballot? Is it going to be a 7-0 vote by the council that you're going to put it on the ballot? Okay.
How do you know it's 7-8?
Well,
That's why we're asking. Okay. So,
He's going to buy me a lottery ticket today.
all 7 of us today agreed. It's study session, so it's not a voting session.
Right.
But the 7 of us agreed on what of the 3 options. There's 4 options. You can do
there's 4.
nothing.
or do nothing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Well,
a
do
fi-
nothing, you wouldn't put it on the ballot.
There's a 5th option, and that hasn't been considered.
Oh, but we'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so Ted,
Thank you.
what is going?
Fifth option.
Right, there should
There
be a
is.
5th, and we're going to discuss that. Ted, what is going on the voting session May 14th? What is the council going to talk about?
Well, let me take a second and
Go ahead.
and share with you in my formerly nicotine-stained hands, as Al Rushba would say. We had a bunch of charts to look at.
And I think everybody's got a
All right.
copy here.
And it's hard to look through these charts and make some sense of it, because there's things happening that I asked city staff to put together a graph, and so you got a graph of I got a graph of all 3. You got a graph of the last one.
Right, everybody, I concentrated on the one that the council's probably going to be talking about. So go ahead.
So let
Ted.
me take you through. I'm a big fan of Occam's razor. The simplest solution is probably the right solution.
Correct.
So I thought before this meeting that 0.75 would be an answer. It would cover operational and capital out through the period of the proposal.
Okay.
This graph that I'm showing you guys that you can't see on radio
Let me take a look here. Go ahead.
shows you the impact of 0.75, and you can see out at the end we have a big deficit to the tune of about $4 million in cash flow. But more importantly,
Okay.
we got it doesn't pay off. The bond doesn't mature until 2058.
Correct.
Then we looked at a 0.8. 0.8
2058.
just about breaks even.
Okay, good. Okay.
And you can see I got to give credit to Mark Woodfull. You see the capital expenses in brick.
Very clever. Very clever.
So the blue is police. It's supposed to be red. Red's supposed to be fire, and then the green is the debt
service.
service.
By the way, for anybody, if you want to go on the City of Prescott website, go to today's meeting agenda. You can download this packet and all of the charts on
Right.
it. Okay? So go ahead.
All right. So the third option was, and I abhorred this option going into the meeting. I said there's no way that I'm going to vote for this.
Okay.
It's raise it 0.95. When you go to 0.95, you're going above Chino and Prescott Valley in terms of sales tax. It goes from 8.35 to 9.3.
Okay.
Prescott Valley is 9.18, and Chino's 10 something.
Right.
Okay, so we evaluated all 3, and this is the same kind of graphical chart, 0.95. You can see that it's. I hate to use the term sunset because I think it's kind of like a political ploy,
Right. The tax is 0.95% reduced to 0.75% as of December 31st, 2035.
Correct.
Okay.
And then this graph's a little different because this goes out 14 years to show that when you drop to 0.75, it's covering both the operational expense of fire and police.
And covers the debt service at that point.
Debt service is gone.
Is gone at that point.
So instead of 2058, it's done.
As of
now-
2035.
Right now, the question is, well, why did Gambogi go in there looking at 0.75 and
Change his mind.
and then go big government and go to 0.95? And here's the reason why.
Okay.
If you take the 0.8%,
Okay.
remember it goes out to 2058.
Right.
Our total expense for that bond would be $45,146,097
45.
at 0.8. 45 million.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What did I say?
1,000.
Which points up part of the problem
You
with
guys are the
government
big government.
budgets.
You're escalating it already. Now, at the 0.95 with the dropping down to 0.75, because I won't use the sunset term,
Correct.
it's the debt cost is $6.6 million. So the net effect is the city saves $38 million taking that big. It's like taking a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage.
You save on the debt service.
You're saving $38 million on the debt service.
Okay.
So that then, at that point, we're going to staff and saying, all right, now they've proposed language
Right.
that we have here, and
Can we bring the ballot language up on the screen? Go ahead, Ted.
you have it there?
We're going to get it up here.
There.
All right, this is
Thomas behind
this is
you.
the ballot language for .95 and .75. So,
Right, and this is the one that all 7 members of the council
okay.
said this for the staff to finalize the ballot language.
So this is the proposal that's going to go before the council to be, and if it's approved, it will appear on the November ballot.
With maybe a little wordsmithing in it, but yes.
And a yes vote will adopt the tax of .95, taking effect April 1st next year, and reducing to .75 on December 31st, 2035, the revenue from which shall be contributed to the city's general fund for the sole purpose of funding public safety services within the city.
Define
Correct.
public safety.
Well, big interruption here.
Okay, hold on a second. Malcolm?
So how do you vote no on both with this kind of ballot language? You're going to get a minimum of .75 or a maximum of .95.
Well, there was the fourth option, which is do nothing.
Well, is that on the ballot?
No.
This is only it. So
No,
they've
you're-
guaranteed an increase of a minimum of 75.
No.
No, your
There's
no
only
is
gonna
you
be-
don't vote for it.
The yes vote shall have the effect of adopting. A
Correct.
no vote will have the effect of adopting.
Not adopting.
Of
Yeah.
not adopting. It's yes or
So
no.
you either agree or you disagree.
Okay.
Okay. No, it's there were 3 proposals. The proposal that's going to be put on, the one proposal is going to be for the .95 and .75 10 years later.
Okay.
But-
Where's the other proposal?
They're not doing them.
Don't you see what we're talking about here?
Yeah, no.
If you vote yes, you go .75.
No,
If you
no,
vote
no, Malcolm, no.
If you
Second
vote
paragraph.
Yes, you start out at .95, and then after this date, you go to .75.
Okay.
Can we avoid the ploy and say .95 is a penny?
I would say that would be an interesting point, wouldn't it? I'll tell you what.
Or like gasoline.
While we,
0.99.
all right, folks, if you're just as confused as Malcolm is, hang in there because we're going to take a quick break and we're going to straighten everybody up, and we'll be back after this on the Mulligan Group on KYCA. And we're back on the air here, folks. And if you're following as close as I am, you're lost just as much as I am. Okay, very quickly, let's spell it out. The City Council will be putting a proposal on May 14th. The proposal will be, and if you approve the proposal, then this goes on the ballot in November and generally says, if you vote yes, and if a yes vote prevails, the city sales tax beginning next April goes up by 0.95%.
Correct.
Now, it will lower to 0.75 10 years later.
Which will cover the operational expenses of police and fire.
Yeah, now the reason for this.
Now, Phil has a question that hasn't been answered yet.
Okay, Phil, go right ahead, please. No?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Finish up.
so very quickly, Projected capital needs, according to the projected operational needs, are going to increase over time to $55.9 million by 2035.
Correctamundo.
Capital needs, including a new police station, new fire stations, renovation of the other stations, and extra equipment, is going to come out to just over $110 million over 8 years. That's what it looks like to me. Eighth fiscal year.
Okay, one question.
Go ahead.
Does that account for inflation on the additional sales tax revenues we are going to collect with rising costs?
Ted.
I'd be speaking out of turn. I think it does, but I know that, for example, salaries have a 3% inflation factor in there.
Okay.
To hire the new policeman.
Now
and I think Mark said that, but I'm not sure.
Okay, now I understand this is Mark Woodfill who's making these projections, the city treasurer.
Right.
It's not Ted. I'm not putting that on you. I understand
That's
that.
okay. I knew I was walking into a lion's den here.
You were at the meeting. We weren't, so, I mean, you should know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, very generally around the table. Bob, reactions to this?
My first response is that it's a bad idea and we shouldn't do it. I see nothing on here that suggests that we've looked anywhere else. We've just decided we're going to increase everything instead of finding ways to reduce costs at the city. But I don't know what those would be, so I'm just saying that.
Okay.
As a general rule.
You don't think there's been enough due diligence looking at the budget in general?
Correct.
Ted?
Well, here, let me share a couple facts with you. Police Chief Amy Bonney just trained 5 new policemen. Mm-hmm. That's $100,000 a pop. That's $500,000. Getting policemen anywhere in the country is tough, especially here, because we're paying starting salary here is about 20 grand less than, say, Denver or Phoenix or Houston.
They're not being hunted here.
We're 16
Yet.
We're 16 policemen down. So there's an operational expense that I don't think the public is really aware of. Okay. Secondly, in 1995, we built our last fire station. Mm-hmm. We basically have the same number of fire stations and about the same number of firemen as we had in 1995, yet Prescott is how much bigger?
Mm-hmm. Much bigger.
80% bigger?
No.
50% bigger?
No.
Maybe 40 or 30 or 40% bigger?
I think it's
so.
Okay.
We've been buying champagne over the last few years, and this is a meat and potatoes.
Yes, you've been prior city councils, and I'm going to preface my comments by saying you're not at fault in this. Right. No, we built the last fire station. We did. It's not our fault. Councils afterwards did not. It's not your fault that councils prior to you messed this up, but you do not impose taxes on the taxpayers. You do not impose costs on the taxpayers to make up for mismanagement of the city budget over the last 5-6 years.
And
Well, let me ask a question.
Tom, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, let me ask you a question, Phil. I would challenge that. Yes, I think that city councils over the last couple of decades have probably been a little remiss, not a little, they've been remiss in being able to determine what the future needs would be. That being said, we are where we are. What difference does it make if they made bad decisions 10 years ago? Right. We're still stuck in the same position that we're in right now. It's not changed. Now, you may want to hold those people accountable, and we should probably vote them all out of office, and I think we already have, including all of us sitting here.
No, there's some that need to go.
Well, true, but we're not getting into that, the weeds. What we want to do, though, is you're faced with a situation right now. I mean, every council gets faced with situations that come up during the course of their council membership that they have to address that weren't either planned for or they were mildly planned for and all of a sudden can come to fruition. I'll give an example. The lakes. Mm-hmm. Not an emergency situation, but the opportunity to purchase the lakes came to the council back in the 90s, mm-hmm. and council decided, we're going to take advantage of that and we're going to do that.
And how did they do that? They did it with a bond. Capital improvements should always be done with a bond, and if you need a special tax to cover the bonds, which you often do, it sunsets when the bonds are paid. That's how you build your new fire station. That's how you build your police stations and buy your equipment with a capital improvement bond. You do not raise taxes for O&M. You figure out how to pay for it.
Okay. Tom? you were thinking on that?
I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that you've got this bond that has to be paid off.
But if you do it this way, everybody, the people that are coming into town, the tourists and everything, they're gonna pay for all this. What's the problem?
They're going to pay for half of it.
They're going to
If they
pay.
create a
They
lot
pay a
of-
chunk
I
of
knew
it.
that was going to be
demand,
one of the.
sure.
Well,
reasons.
that's
of
one of the
course.
things I said at council today is we always banter out the term 60% or 65% of non-residents pay. Now, what I don't know is how much of that 60% are our neighbors, and how many of the 60% are people that come in from Kinshasa. I don't know. If it's PV, and we go to 0.95, then we bump up above PV. So will they come across the border to buy at Prescott? I don't know.
No,
Nobody knows
nobody.
what-
Yeah.
Nobody
don't.
knows
Nobody
what
cares.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what tax rate they're paying. Any of you who have been to any of the major cities, for example, Chicago. If you fly to Chicago and rent a car, what sales tax did you pay on that car rental?
I can tell you in Dallas that if you rent a car, more than half of what you pay for the car is taxes.
Thank you very much.
And
Yeah.
all of it is like that, including in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
All right.
true. All true.
Okay, so this is going on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
What was the public reaction? Because I know that the public spoke for at least a half an hour. It wasn't pleasant, I
Well-
can tell you that.
Well, this is what amazed me. If somebody wants to put up a cell phone tower, the council chambers are chock full
Yeah.
with banners and protest. And if they want to put a traffic light up, same thing, it's full.
Try
there,
the
were,
cat.
there were about 3 or 4 people in council chambers today.
Try the cat leash law.
Yeah, Phil, that was a cartoon that you and I had in our office. It was a cartoon that showed $105 million budget being discussed, and it shows the audience, and there's one person.
Yes.
And then in the second one is dog leash law. The place is packed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we're talking about $111 billion and 3 people show up. You're talking about a free cell phone tower or a free traffic light, and the whole place is chock full.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to leave it there because we're about to take a break at the bottom of the hour. Ted, do you want to stick around for a little longer?
I'd be pleased to stick around.
The word is honored.
Honored, that's
Honored
the word.
to
yes,
be here
yes,
on the
yes.
Mulligan Group on KYCA.
Or if not honored, willing.
Yeah. Folks, if you're following along on your score sheets, throw them out. This month doesn't count because we're talking about taxes and everything else. Folks, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be an interesting proposal at the very least, and you need to be there and paying attention at least on May 14th when this comes before the council. We're going to hash this out just a little bit longer, and then we'll let Ted go, and then we'll talk about him behind his back here on the Mulligan Group on KYCA. Back after these. No, I've got 17 seconds left. Can I say what I really want to say? No. Okay.
You gotta do it in 10
Not in
seconds.
17
Not in
seconds.
17 seconds. That'll take another show. Folks, thank you for your patience. Thanks for joining us on KYCA PM. We'll be back after this. All right, we're back on the KYCA PM show, lovingly called the Mulligan Group today. The band is all here. I want to thank everybody for squeezing around the table. Bleachers will be installed next month.
I like the name, Jason and the Naysayers.
Ooh, I
that's
like
really
that.
good, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I appreciate the gal who thought that up.
That's fantastic. And around the table, of course, former Councilman Bob Roecker, former Councilman Tom Reilly at the end, former Councilman Phil King, former Councilman Malcolm Barrett Jr., and soon-to-be member of the Mulligan Group, Ted Gambogi, current council member. Thank you for throwing yourself on the sacrificial altar here today.
I didn't realize we'd be getting into this.
I tell you, what did you think I was going to talk about? Leash law? I mean, come on.
I thought you wanted to talk about cell phone towers.
Oh, no.
Bird feeders.
Not
Oh,
necessarily.
one of the things I
You
think,
can't have bird feeders.
if I
Okay,
can interrupt, one of
Tom.
the things I think Phil brought out a good point at the break, and saying that raising sales tax is the easy way, it's the most expeditious way of being able to address this. So the question that I would ask, and I don't know the answer to this question, is where else could we possibly find this level of funding?
And to another point, Ted, you were talking about the possibility of water. I mean, we were talking about ADWR and SRP, and the fact that this was brought up at, I believe, a study session last week concerning
Over a month ago.
concerning the amount of money that it's going to take for us to pipe in water from the ranch, from the
Big Chino.
from the Big Chino, excuse me. And what was the bill we were talking? North of $200 million, or something like that.
In 10 years, that's going to seem dirt cheap.
Exactly.
That number is insane.
Yeah.
We are importing water, not hazardous waste. You could lay that thing on the surface of the ground if it
Well,
wasn't.
then
for
we'll
people
hire
that-
you, Mark. We'll get you. You can do it.
I think I could do it for about
And
20 bucks?
1/10 of
Ted ought to know all it takes is a DA cat
That's right.
to run
How
to,
big is that?
And a
to
ripper.
open the pumps up and
If-
let the water run down the Chino Wash to where Sullivan Lake once was, and you can pick it up from there. And
Yep.
Remember, we split that with PV.
Okay.
I understand.
A question.
I've got the contract at home.
A question came in from an honorary member of the Mulligan Group. That would be former Prescott City Councilman Charlie Arnold,
Very good.
who texted me and asked, "Are they shifting the current public safety operational cost to revenue from the proposed sales tax?"
The general fund funding, as it is today for police and fire, stays the same.
Okay.
So this is in addition. And Phil brought up a question earlier about the sole purpose of the funding and the general fund. That's where you may see some wordsmithing to make sure they lock it in. So neither current funding nor this funding get commingled.
you need a statement saying what's the current percentage of the general fund going to police and fire? 75%, 40%, whatever it is.
Okay.
We need wording saying that general fund expenditures as of today should not ever fall below whatever that current percentage is.
Okay.
And lock it in at that point. And if you're doing 1% on top of that, but you're doing it for capital costs, and those go away, but then the 3/4 cent remains in perpetuity.
Correct.
And
Because
I heard a city councilman say during one of these discussions 2 or 3 weeks ago, when they were talking about 0.75, said, why not just go to 1% and then we can buy more open space too?
that was not me.
That was not you, no.
I can tell you the public is not.
You want the name?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
But we can guess.
The public is not going to believe that it's going to drop in 2035.
I don't agree with that. I think that the public will show that the city has done that before.
You got
and we've done it
443
several
as a
times.
role
We
model.
did it with a road tax for
Yes.
special projects one
Yes.
time. We did it with PSPRS.
Yeah, we've done it.
And-
The city has
and-
done it before, so
Yes.
it will happen again.
They go away.
And I think people will understand that, yes,
Okay.
if it's hitting here, if it's written in here, it's got to happen. It's law.
There will be enough people that will keep an eye on this. I can say that.
Okay.
I will say that.
Partly the Mulligan Group.
we'll try.
Yeah.
Whoever's left at that point.
Yeah.
By that time, Ted probably would have resigned from the group anyway. I don't blame him.
He may resign after this.
I think so.
Keep missing the mic.
I think
I
the
know.
operative
Maybe that's
the
good.
operative term is defect.
Defect. Very good, Ted. I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and take our break early because we've got some things to digest here. Ted, do you want to stick around or you want let Malcolm have the mic?
Are you done picking on Ted Gambogi?
What do you think, guys?
No.
I am not.
No,
want Ted
I don't. I don't think we're picking on you, Ted. I think that you have more knowledge about this than the rest of us do combined, and it'll be really good to have you here to be able to set us straight when we go astray.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I
We're not-
agree, and like I said earlier, we're making up for errors that occurred long before Ted got on the city council, and he jumped into the fire and got faced with this stuff.
And to be quite honest, if I had thought about Brandon or even the mayor or somebody, I would have brought him here. But I thought of you first because we like you.
There is a God, and He is merciful.
We'll see about that in the next
Show's
segment
not
of the
over.
Mulligan Group. Folks, if you're following on the radio, you're a braver person than I am at this point. So let's just take a quick break, take a breath, and we'll be back after this. And we're back here on the KYCA PM show, and that's when the laughter starts. I say KYCA, and the laughter starts. Thanks, guys. The Mulligan Group is back with the special honorary guest, His Honor First Class Ted Gambogi of the Prescott City Council. Those of you who are on the City Council and did not get invited, it's not through oversight. I just like Ted. I just like looking at Ted. So I'm glad he's here. It's just I'm just saying it's great to see you on council. And by the way, thank you for running, and thank you for being on the council.
I agree.
We appreciate people, and you know what? It takes something, as we've said before, to really run. All of you guys know what it takes to run, and everybody who's on council and has run. It takes a little bit of courage to get up there and actually be up in public.
I would really like to see a 5-2 vote about this
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well,
instead of a 7-0, and I understand how those things are done.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead.
Phil, you bring up another point during the break, and I think that our listeners really need to know that this is not the only, talk about the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Well, it's a train. Well, this is one train. There are several trains coming through that tunnel, and the city is going to have to deal with these things as it comes along. It's not going to be free. It is going to cost money, and it is going to cost money for the citizens of Prescott as well as the people who come here. When our population doubles every day, when I say doubles every day,
Everybody comes into work.
we have 48,000 people in town, and another 48,000 people come into town to work.
Well,
Visit.
So basically,
visit, yep.
You have a town of 100,000 people. Isn't that what the fire department?
Holger Dorey, the fire chief, said Prescott is a town of 47,000 at night and 100,000 during the day.
Well, those 100,000 people, we need to come up with a way to be able to pay for all these things that are coming on the horizon. And one of the ways of doing that is increase property taxes, which I would vehemently oppose because I don't think it's a very good way to tax things. The other way is the thing that I said this on council too. If you use it, you pay for it. Right. And people who come into town and use our roads, buy things in our stores, they help pay for the roads. They help pay for the cops. They help pay for the fire stations. They help pay for the ongoing operations. And I think that a sales tax is, while it may be expedient, I think it is a fair way for those who utilize those services, pay for those services.
okay.
Yeah,
Take it away.
And
Phil.
I agree, Tom, because the sales tax is the most equitable because the users pay.
Okay. Malcolm.
I go back to my earlier point.
Okay.
If we are relying on this tourist business and the people and buying and spending money in restaurants and beverages and food, they say, "Oh, woe is me! They're creating all the expense. Why are we subsidizing and a 2% growth for tourism promotion? It's offsetting values. Wouldn't it be prudent maybe to divert some of those bed and breakfast taxes for a period of years to pay for this, the capital improvements?"
What do you think, Ted?
Ted?
Well, that was a question that came up, and I ran that trap line with Mark Woodville, and I don't remember the explanation why, but I remember the explanation that doesn't work as well as sales tax. So that's a trap line we've run.
And if I'm not mistaken,
Particular industries.
All right,
sorry.
Tom. Go ahead. No.
hasn't the Arizona legislature restricted our ability to collect sales tax? Or isn't that something that they're trying to do? They tried to do it. Perhaps it wasn't successful this time. Makes you think it's not going to happen the next time or the next time.
Well, they
Phil?
did it in the sense that sales taxes are now submitted to the state, who then is nice enough to give it back to the cities and towns. They did that,
Our ability to collect our
own sales tax
Right.
and control
Oh, my
how
Lord.
much it is. And
Reagan was right.
I would ask what the handling fee is.
But
Well-
Tom, you brought up earlier, and it's an issue. I give credit to Holger. I mean, Holger is a great addition to the city of Prescott, not only as a fire chief, but he's spent the time to create the vision to say, hey, there's a train coming down the tracks, and we got to do something now. And it's not a binary. Let's just spend more money and buy more policemen and buy more firemen. We're competing across the country for police and fire because the numbers are down. When I did a ride-along in the fire department, they showed me the video interview of the new hire for EMT. And he said, what do you think of this interview? He looks good. Plus, I did the ride and drive. He's a good guy. Now let me show you the others. He said, normally we have 200 people to look at before we hire somebody.
Right.
I only got 50 this time. Look at these interviews. And I said, I guess we've got a long haul here.
I have a friend of mine that goes to the same gym that I do, and he's a young policeman. He's just been on the force for maybe just a few years. And I asked him what he thought. And I said, so, you're off the record here, and what do you think about this whole thing? He says, well, I don't know. He says, I don't understand politics, which was the right answer. And
Who does?
And then he said, I can tell you what it is. He goes, I'm working 6, sometimes 7 days a week. He says, and I'm driving a car that has well over 200,000 miles on it. And he says, so when you think about it, he says, if I'm in a hot pursuit against somebody, if I'm trying to save somebody, or I have to get from one side of town to the other, and my 225,000 miles on my car just decides to give on me, then who's safe?
Well, we had a program to avoid that problem. What happened to it?
Right.
Same thing.
You bought champagne instead of meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
I say chasing rainbows and unicorns, but
Right.
we're making the
But
same
I
point.
just use that
Well,
as an example.
I
It's
do-
not just people.
No.
And Tom, what Tom relates is the case, But there's an uglier case down the road, and I think the uglier case is this. Do we want to play Class A ball for police and fire and lose all those players to the bigs? Meaning, we become a training ground for police, and then they go take a 20 grand increase and go somewhere else. We can't afford to do that.
I did like your proposal or your idea that we've discussed it about the signing bonus and as a down payment on a home and a 5-year contract before you can leave, so go somewhere else.
Tom brought that up about other costs.
Yes.
And Mike Fann's heading up that workforce housing committee.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a number of alternatives, but rent, to me, renting is not a way to make a guy or a gal member of the community. Now, instead of building new places, we could infill into the city, and my proposal was cover the down payment. You stay on the service for 5-10 years, and then we wipe the down payment free, and then they get appreciation while they're here, so they have some ownership. They got skin in the game.
Right, exactly.
And one thing, if I could go back to this, Jason.
Real quick.
The other costs.
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at the cost here, which is what, 100?
110 million plus operational needs.
Yeah, plus operational needs.
Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
And then on top of that, we have what you referred to as the sheets.
Where
our
Supreme Court
fees,
case,
our impact fees, they're taking away the government, both the federal and the state government are taking away our ability to raise money outside of raising taxes. Okay, there's that. Now there's the big Chino. And there are those out there who say, well, don't grow. Well, folks, too late. I mean, those needs are here now. They're real, they're now, and there's something that we need. Yeah. We have to think about what's coming next.
Exactly. One other aspect of the Sheets case, and it's got multifacets, is of course the end of impact fees. They have to be based on actual costs. The other, and it's going to go back retroactively, gosh knows how many years, is on land extractions for subdivisions, where governments, localities, municipalities like this one have required cessation of portions of land within a development for open
fire
space.
stations, libraries, police stations, things like that.
Okay.
All of that
And open space.
All of that's going to have to be paid for.
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our wrap things up after this. There we go. Okay, hey, we're back here on the KYCA PM show, the Mulligan Group. We got to wrap things up. There's been a lively discussion off mic. I'm going to tell you something. One of these days, I'm going to sell the tapes of all the breaks here, and I'm going to make a boatload of money. Okay.
Wait, that's a criminal offense. That's hush money.
Yeah.
We're done here, folks. Good night, everybody. Okay. All right. Very, very quickly, Ted. to your point that you were just saying, we want to educate people, correct? Now, Tom, you were saying...
Well, I think I'd like to hear from Ted. I think I know where we should go from here.
Right.
But educating people is number one, and that's number one. And Ted, you said something just a few minutes ago about this situation not being a...
Go ahead.
It's going to go on the ballot. It's going to be at the bottom of the ballot.
And
the
it's
question,
a big, and by the way, it's a big ballot.
It's a big ballot. Now, it came up in study session today. Well, how do we get people to read it? And my answer is, it's not how you get people to read it. It's how you communicate to the community. So I have an impassioned plea to everybody listening, Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, whatever community group is. I'm going out in a couple weeks to one community group with the fire chief and the police chief.
Chief Bonnie, yep.
Because I think this needs to be explained. This is ugly.
Yes.
I mean, nobody wanted this. But this is like coming into a team that went 0-16, and you got to rebuild it. So you got to do tough things, and this is a tough thing.
And I'm going to tell every single member of the council to do the same thing. If you believe in this, you need to be out there and discussing and being able to take questions on this.
I think you need
I'll
to
go to
engage
any
more than
social group and explain this.
There you go. Tom?
Well, when the road tax first came, the first one, Dayton was the mayor then, and I was on a committee, a volunteer committee, to learn about the road tax and go out and talk to community groups, about the road tax and why it was an important thing for us to do. And I think all of us at one point or another have done that thing, whether we've been in the elected position or not. And I think that the council needs to reach out to their peeps, and say, hey, we need to know not only who, but there's 7 of us, and 7 of us can't really visit 350 different volunteer groups around the city in the next 6 months. Let's get some folks together and let's get some people out there and let's get a way that we can communicate this information to people. And Ted, I just loved what you said earlier. This is not a win-win situation.
No.
This is a lose-lose situation. We just got to be the best kind of losers that we can be right now. We have to suck it up.
Yeah.
Around the table, we've got 4 minutes left. Bob?
Well, I'm sad that we're in this position. It's just poor management. We just didn't. We had some things in place, they didn't happen, and now here we are. And I would hope that it would lose, but I would bet money with everybody beating the drum that we have to do this, or the whole city will collapse. That it'll pass. I'm going to say that it will pass.
Tom, final word.
I believe that it will pass if the education process over the next several months is effective and tells the truth, the whole thing. Puts it all out there.
We know a certain percentage is going to vote no matter what.
True.
I mean, that's just down the road. and there's number 1 right there at the corner. You know what? I want Malcolm to speak first, and then we'll bring it back to the dean here.
All right. These shortfalls began when the voters diverted a road tax that was dedicated strictly for roads and hijacked that to the ability of councils to use up to half of that in open space, which did happen. And the general fund has always supported fire and police. Remember, we do not have a dedicated property tax for fire as anybody in the county does through CAFMA. That's 1/3 of the tax bill.
Okay.
So, and we paid it through the general fund, but when we start paying other things, wants versus needs out of the general fund, our needs suffer.
Phil?
I would support a sales tax increase if it was connected to a capital improvement bond. That would then go away when the bonds are settled. Not for O&M. That's the job of city council, is to get their priorities straight and pay the O&M off of current revenue.
What's O&M mean?
Operations and maintenance.
Thank you.
Okay. Ted, last thoughts.
I'll finish with quotes from 2 people.
Go ahead.
One is the former coach of UCLA, my hero, John Wooden, who once said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And the other comes from President John F. Kennedy, who once said, we're not doing this because it's easy. We're doing this because it's hard.
Okay.
And he also said a rising tide lifts all boats when he was proposing his tax cut.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we've heard from
They're a
around.
tough crowd.
This is a tough crowd, Ted. You're a brave man to come in here. Gentlemen, all I can say is that a month from now we're going to be discussing the proposal again, I suppose. We have had a lot of calls in for the taxes, and this is by far not going to be the very last show. Charlie's going to hit this. Everybody's going to hit this on their programs, and we're going to continue to do it. Ted, would you come back at some point once we get things figured out?
After having this much fun, you betcha.
All right. We got 30 seconds left. Last word for anybody, real quick. Bob?
Nope, I'm good.
Tom?
Learn about it, folks. Just learn about it.
How about those Suns, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Malcolm, last word?
How about those Coyotes? We're still trying to think of a new name in Utah.
Well, I've got some suggestions, but my proposal, if they return to the Valley, is to move them north and rename them the Anthem Nationals. And with that, we are done for today. Thank goodness we are. Thank you for your bravery, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.